Hey, it's Coach Reeves. Today we're going to talk about expanding and condensing logs. Okay? It's not hard. You got to take it one step at a time. I'm going to give you a lot of little baby steps and we're going to put it together towards the end. Okay? So when we get started, a few points to remember. When we talk about addition and multiplication, they're going to go together and you'll understand what that means. Addition will mean to multiply. Later on, multiplication will mean to add. Subtraction and division go together. When we expand, when we stretch it out, we're going to repeat, we're going to use the word log. We're going to use the word log for each operation. Okay, you're going to stretch it out. Okay, and then when we condense, we're going to use the word log only one time. Only use it one time. All right, so let's get into this. Okay, so we're going to expand. My 6 is an exponent. So when we expand, we're going to ask you to push this around in the front, and we're going to say 6 log of A. So if you have an exponent, we're going to ask you to push it in front of the word log. Over here, this is multiplication. And remember, one of those points was, if you have multiplication, we're going to treat it as addition. Okay? So I'm going to ask you to write log of x, but the multiplication, I'm going to ask you to treat that multiplication and put a plus sign because we're stretching it out, we're expanding. And we're going to write log y. Okay? So every time we multiply, we're going to add and put a little addition sign in there. We're going to stretch it out and write the word log for every time we multiply. Okay? Here, if multiplication is going to be thought of as addition, division will be used as subtraction. So we're going to ask you to write log of u, and then this division, this fraction, that division symbol, will tell us we're going to use subtraction, and we're going to say log of v. Now this is a little bit tricky, okay? I'm going to ask you, is there another way? Just look at the radical, that's the cube root. If I gave you this problem a couple of days ago and said, hey, this is the cube root of u to the first power, could you rewrite that as an exponent? And hopefully you would say, yeah, Coach, I can do that. I can write this as u to the 1/3. Because we've done that, we've converted. So we're going to think of this as u to the 1/3. And what did we ask you to do if we had an exponent? We asked you to put it in front. So if we have, in this case, the cube root, we're going to ask you to take that and we're going to ask you to put it in front. So we're going to say 1/3 log of u. But you have a choice, because this is saying to multiply times 1/3. That's how we read it. What's the equivalent of multiplying times 1/3? You could actually write this also as, or we could write this as log u divided by 3. Multiplying times 1/3 is the equivalent of dividing by 3. Both of those are great answers, okay? But here's what I want you to think about, okay? You're going to see this a lot on your worksheets. But if you see a 2 down here, that means you're taking the square root. If you see a 3, the cube root of 4, you're taking the 4th root. It tells you when you have a number in the denominator, it tells you that you're taking the root of something. So there's going to be a radical involved. Okay, remember that. All right, so we're going to try to put a couple things together. Okay, we have an exponent. We have an exponent, so we're going to have to push that 6 in front. So we're going to say 6 log of x. That's how we took care of the x to the 6th. But we have this fraction bar, and that means we're going to have to say minus, because it's fraction bar, we're dividing. But we have another exponent, and that 4 is going to have to go in front. So we're going to say 4 log of y. And that's how you would expand that part. Over here, if I gave you a situation like this, I would like for you to use your exponents rules first. I would like for you to go log. In this case, I need you to say that 2 goes to the x. That's going to be x squared. That 2 also goes to the 5. That goes y to the 10th. I would ask for you to do your exponent rules real quick. And then expand. And we would write this as, remember, 2 log x. But this is going to be, when those two variables are next to each other, that's treated as multiplication. And what does multiplication make us think? Addition. So you would say plus, but then you had another exponent, which goes in front, and you're going to say 10 log y. All right, now look at this problem. We're going to put it all together, and this is probably as hard as problem I can give you. Okay? Take it a little bit at a time. Let me bump this up so we have a little bit more room. All right, so the first thing I would want you to look at is this 5. And all we're going to do, there's nothing special about that, so we'll just start it off with the basic, and we say, I have log base 3 of 5. That's what I have. There's no exponents, there's nothing special about it. But what we're about to do is we're going to multiply, because it's times that radical. And since it's times that radical, we're going to say plus. Now look at my radical. I'm going to take the cube root. I am taking the cube root. So right off the bat, that makes me think, okay, I'm going to take the cube root of somebody. I could write it as a fraction, or I could divide by 3. I'm just going to divide by 3, okay? So this tells me I am taking the cube root. I am taking the cube root. But who am I going to take the cube root of? I'm going to take the cube root of a squared. I am taking the cube root of a squared. That's an exponent, so that 2 has to come in front. 2 log a. That is a squared. That is a squared, but we're taking the cube root of a squared. But we're also going to take the cube root of b. We're going to take the cube root of b. So we're going to say log b. Oh, I forgot my 3's. Excuse me. We're taking log base 3, log, don't forget your base. Always include your base 3, your log base 3, your log base 3. Okay? So you have my 5, I have my a squared, I have my b. But where is c to the 4th power located? It's in the denominator. So we've got this fraction bar, which tells me it's in the denominator, so we're going to have to say what? Minus, because it's in the denominator, but we also have an exponent. We have an exponent on that c, so the 4 has to go. We're going to say 4 log of c. Got it? That's about as complicated as you're going to see right there. Okay? All right, this is expanding. And remember, we said when we're going to expand, we're going to use the word log every time we use a different operation or a different term. Okay? More just an operation, excuse me. Let's try condensing. All right, so this is going to start really basic. We're going to go backwards from expanding. So what you saw what we did with the expanding, we're going to do the reverse for condensing. So I would ask you, if I have 3 log u, I would ask you to write this as log. Now that's your exponent, u to the 3rd power. We're just going backwards. I have addition. Remember what we said, addition goes along with multiplication. So we're putting it back together, we're squeezing it. So we're going to write log. We only write the word log one time, but we're going to say UV. Now, if you think you need to, if you think you need to, you can put that and say, okay, I know that that means to multiply. That's fine. If you want to put the dot for the multiplication symbol, but you don't need it. We just know that it's U times V, and we can just squeeze it together as UV. Okay? So we're going to take it away. Uh-oh, we have this 3 at the bottom. Since I have the 3 at the bottom, that means I am taking the cube root. I am taking the cube root, so we're going to say log, and we are taking the cube root of what? Of U. That's how you would put that back if you were condensing. Now, we're going to put these all together in just a second. It's going to be kind of tricky, but we're teaching you the basics. I have subtraction, and we said subtraction makes us think about division, so we're going to say log of A divided by B. So there's your fundamentals, there's your basics. Let's look at a big problem, and we need to condense this. That's a lot. That's a lot, okay? So we're going to ask you to take care of it one step at a time. This is an exponent, so that's going to go to the A. So we're going to say log base 3. And this is the only time that we have to write the word log. You don't have to keep writing the word log. So we're going to say log base 3 of what? A to the 6th power. Because that's an exponent. But this is log base 3. This is multiplication. Remember, this addition means we're going to multiply. So we're going to say times B. Okay? Times what? Uh-oh, we're taking what? The 2's at the bottom? That's a root. In this case, it's going to be the square root. So we're going to take the square root of what? C. We're going to take the square root of C. Okay? The minus sign. What does this minus sign tell us to do? That means we're going to have a fraction. Okay? And so that means we're going to have a fraction. And what does this say? The 5 is in front, so that 5 has to be an exponent. So that means we're going to have D to the 5th power. This minus sign tells us to stay in the denominator. It does not say to make another fraction bar. If this would have been a plus sign, this would tell me to put it back in the numerator. But since this is a minus sign, it tells me to stay in the denominator. Do you understand? So you have a minus sign, which tells you to divide and go to the denominator. But you have another minus sign, which means stay in the denominator. So in this case, we would just have an E also in the denominator. And this is how you would condense that problem. Okay? So look at all the baby steps, and then look how we put it all together to use it in the longer problems. Okay? Do some practicing. Not every problem will be this complicated, but you need to try to look at it and see where it came from. Go back up and look at the examples. All right? Do what you can, and let us know if you get stuck. Good luck.